Phoenix Magazine podcast is on location, Johan. It's
right.
great to be in North Phoenix. It's a craft beer destination now.
It is now, yeah.
So we're here at Kitsune Brewing. Did I say that right, Tyler?
Yes, you did.
We're here with the owner and brewer, Tyler Smith, Kitsune Brewing Company, 32nd Street in Bell. Beautiful location. Congrats on this location. You guys just opened up in October. What's it been like being a brand new brewery owner? I mean, it still smells like brand new brewery in here, right, Johan?
Yeah.
If that's what the smell is, I guess. Thank you. No, things have been great here, man. It's been a real pleasure. The community has just come out amazingly. We have housing behind us, and then we have people who like every Friday, like, oh, we walk over to the brewery, like this is our spot now. So it's been really cool to be able to come back to the community and really be a place where people in the area and people who travel to can just feel like they can come whenever.
Dude, that's always the best thing about having a brewery in your neighborhood is when you can walk there, maybe take a bike ride up there. It just makes you feel more at home when you have that kind of home field brewery just right around the corner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For us being in the East Valley, I mean, we have a lot of that. So it's cool to see the North Valley start to really grow in that way. You started brewing out of Simple Machines space. Tell us a little bit about how that whole process went. Like, how'd you get hooked up with them, and then how did that help you sort of grow into your own space?
Yeah, so originally the idea was I was going to move back to Phoenix. I lived in Portland for a bit. I moved back to Phoenix, and we were going to open up this brewery. And as we started kind of rolling things out, we thought we were okay. We're ready. And then COVID hit. So I was like, oh, thank God, like we didn't pull the trigger. But also thank God that people out there did pull the trigger, like Simple Machine. So I did a collab with a brewery out in Virginia called The Answer. When they came, they did the Black is Beautiful beer. Weathered Souls out of Texas had this huge program, and all these breweries across the world brewed this beer, Black is Beautiful. And so I reached out to Marshall and I said, hey man, I live right in the area. Like, I'd love for a brewery in my area to do this as well. And he was like, absolutely. So that was my first initial contact with the cats at Simple Machine, was having that conversation with Marshall. We ended up brewing the beer, and through that time, he realized what I wanted to do. I wanted to open my own space, and what's cool about the brewing community is it's unlike any other. Like, even though one day we could possibly competition, he was more than happy to like bring me in, mentor me, and figure out like, okay, this is how this world works. Like, there's a lot of craziness and there's a lot of things that you think you might know that you don't. And so he really helped me kind of get to where I needed to be. I bought several fermenters that I actually put in that Simple Machine to not impede on their production. So I was able to get a lot of cool stuff out my time there. And yeah, so we did that for a year and a half. And then finally we were able to pull the trigger on this space. And I'm so glad I did it that way.
Yeah.
It really helped.
No, that's an amazing story. I remember reading a story, looking at when you guys first opened. I think Marshall was quoted as saying you were outrageous as a brewer, and it reminded him of a lot of himself when he was getting into it. Is that kind of your style, or what would you say is like your brewing philosophy or style? Or do you try to be outrageous? Do you try to be true to style?
So there's always beers that you got to be true to style with. Like, so there's those staples that people are going to come in, when you start messing with like German lagers, like there's certain things you don't touch, and you just kind of, try to do your best to pay homage to the people who came before you. But there are other beers that are kind of newer and funner styles where it's just like, dude, let's just throw something at the wall and see what sticks. And so we've been playing a lot of crazy stuff with our sours. We did a beer that was gray. We called it Dirty Snowflake. It was coconut and vanilla. Like our hazies too. We just, try all these different types of hot combinations. And what's great is that everyone in Arizona, like when you start looking at those types of styles, like people are doing some amazing stuff, and we're just, right now we're a footnote, but hopefully we can be known as, some of those cats out there who are doing some great things with the styles that people know and bringing them to the next level.
I like that. I think, to me, there's like two categories of breweries. There's the super true to style. They make traditional stuff and they do it really, really well. And then there's the creative ones, and the creative ones tend to be more exciting to visit because you never know what they're going to have, and you're going to try all these different things. But then the traditional ones, I mean, are, super reliable, and you just love. I mean, you go to a German brewery in Germany, and they're kind of limited by their purity law and all that stuff. Although I know it's starting to loosen up a bit, but you're going to drink terrific beer, and so it's fun to see the creative guys. I mean, I remember when Wilderness opened, it was like they were doing all this crazy stuff, and it was fun to visit them. So, what do you think right now is your like craziest beer that you have on tap?
On tap right now, unfortunately, we just sold out of the beer that I'd consider the craziest, or one of the craziest. We did a beer called Bantha Milk, which was a blue raspberry sour, and it was awesome. People totally dug it, and because they dug it, it sells out really quickly. But I mean, right now we pretty much have like standard styles on right now. But I mean, like we just came out a beer called Ramen and OJ, which is an all mosaic, but the way we brewed it was what I thought was pretty cool is like you get so much citrus and orange in that beer that it almost looks and tastes just like orange juice. It's crazy.
I had that at Copper State Beer Fest as my sample from the Kitsune tent. Man, it was outrageous and it was great.
So why is it ramen and OJ?
So the ramen part comes from, the plan is for us to open a ramen shop, and we were actually going to be doing a ramen pop-up for the release of this beer. But unfortunately, the person that we were partnering with, they had a family emergency. But the beer still slapped, so we were like, we still got to come out with this because the beer tastes so good. I love it. So the idea was that it was, so it's also the name of a song that we kind of nicked. But the idea was to do the pop-up and release the beer at the same time. It didn't happen, unfortunately, but the beer still came out and it was pretty good.
That's awesome.
So the ramen influence behind it, you anyone who's kind of known your story, you've kind of wanted to build that as part of the brewery, right? And you have a space next door that is not occupied, right? And it's kind of your goal. Is that still kind of in the future plans, is to look at that?
Yeah. So we rented a spot that has 2 empty suites next to us for the hope that we were going to be successful enough one day to expand into one of those to open up a ramen shop. During my travels to Japan, I'll never forget the first time I had a spicy bowl of tonkatsu ramen with one of their local craft IPAs, and it was just the most stellar combination. And I was like, man, no one's really doing that up here, where it's like that, like a brewery. People are making ramen, people are making beer, but no one's opening a brewery ramen shop. Which is like, there's, maybe there's a niche to be filled, and we'll find out once we finally do it if that was a great idea or not. But the way it stands now is, when I'm at home and I have a bowl of ramen, like nothing's better than like a nice hazy IPA to go down with it.
I mean, I'm under the I have the philosophy that beer goes with every kind of food. We were talking about this earlier, and I mean, you have beer barbecue, you have beer and like American pub food, you have beer and pizza, you have like all these kind of very typical combinations, but I haven't seen a beer and ramen, so I'm super excited. Hopefully that happens sooner than later. That's really cool. Does
Phoenix have a lot of good ramen spots? I know we write about a couple of them in the magazine, but have you experienced any kind of like these are the must visits? So
for me, the best one that I've been to is called Origami down in Chandler. They're doing some really awesome stuff there. There was a spot up in Scottsdale called Cold Sake Hot Noodles that was doing some amazing stuff. Unfortunately, they're no longer open. To me, even if like you're like, hey, we're doing cup of noodle maruchan, like as long as you're trying to elevate that even a little bit, like make it your own. And that's, there's a lot of cool places here in Phoenix who are, some are not as traditional, just like with breweries, right? People are doing some different stuff with ramen. People are doing stuff with different types of restaurants. My whole thing is just try everybody. Like everyone has something to offer. It might not always be your shtick, but like you got to appreciate the people that are in the game doing different things.
And always go back for a second try. If you don't like it the first time, give it a second try, right?
If someone was, you said cup of noodles, if someone wanted to take a cup of noodles at home, those like 15-cent whatever things, and they wanted to elevate it, what would you say is like give us a little tip on how to elevate a plain old cup of noodles?
Dude, yeah. So you could even like broil some chicken to cut up in there. And if you can, one of the things that I really like doing is taking some Japanese red pepper flake and putting just some garlic and a little bit of oil in a pan, and then just pouring that right on top of it changes the entire game of the bowl. I mean, the instead of using water, use chicken stock. Like there's just little things you can do to elevate, those little 50 cent.
I love it.
Yeah, it sounds like you might have. Do you have any kind of culinary expertise in your background? Because you were saying you worked in the corporate world for a long time and then opened the brewery. What's your culinary experience like?
Zero. A lot of tears in the kitchen. A lot of trial and error, trying to figure it out. I would never call myself trained, but being taught, like trained to me was like someone who's like, I was in there day in and day out, just getting it in. But like me, is like I was taught how to like do this process of ramen from a cat in Japan. And I always tell people, they're like, oh, I would love your ramen broth recipe. I'm like, I'll give it to you. I'm like, it's not a hard process. It's a time intensive process. You're not going to spend 3 days making your broth like I am. So go ahead and take it. Like, it's the same thing like with brewing. Would you rather just go to the store and make a beer? Or would you rather spend 3 weeks making one in the back? We all, make those decisions.
Yeah.
So a lot of trial and error, a lot of, learning from people who've done it for a while and have done it really well, and then not cutting corners to try to, save time or whatever, just to do it the right way. Kind of like the same thing we do with brewing. Do it the right way and it's going to come out good every time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm excited now. Are you a fan of Clever Koi at all, or
so? Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Clever Koi? Because that's the one right by my house,
and they have Clever Ramen now too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Clever Koi is a staple, man. I mean, you can't. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. Their food is always good, and so when they came hardcore into the ramen space, it was a no-brainer to me. Like, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's funny because people always bring up Clever Koi to me as well, and I'm like, yeah, it's friggin' awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
So your time in Japan, what's craft beer like there? Is it, because my experience is somebody brought back from the Winter Olympics, and I know it's a different country, but South Korea brought back like this rice, milky, I don't know if it was a lager or something, but it was terrible in my opinion, but that's what they like there. What's Japan like?
So a lot of times when people think of like countries like that are rooted in a lot of history, that there has to be like a deep history of every industry. And so like with fermentation and stuff like that, like Japan's history of fermentation is like soy sauce, is like, sake. It's not really beer. Now you have your Asahis, you have your, big name breweries, but as far as like a microbrewery movement, like that didn't become a thing until like the 90s. And so there's a lot of new breweries coming up, trying some new things in Japan. So to your point, like, so I've been to Seoul, I've been to South Korea. I am aware of the drink you were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd call it beer. It's just an unfiltered fermented thing.
I wasn't sure to call it beer either.
But it's like almost creamy. It's weird. I don't know what it's called, but yeah. But no,
it's a shock to the system is
there
what you call it. Yeah.
But the Japanese beers that are coming out have just been like, you have a lot of people like from Germany coming over and training some of the new breweries coming up. There's a guy who used to live in Portland who owns Tokyo Ale Works or works at Tokyo Ale Works. He's from PDX. So you have a lot of American and Western influence coming in the beer culture there. And you're seeing that with like they sell West Coast IPAs. Like, who's West Coast? Well, it's probably not Niigata. It's probably Portland.
Yeah, Portland beer any good in your opinion?
Yes. I mean,
what's your go-to?
So Great Notion. So Great Notion Brewery out of Portland. I lived there when they were brand new, first opened. During the time I lived in Portland, me and a buddy of mine like did a beer Instagram to try to get free beer basically. And so we interviewed them like before they even opened. So to see how they've grown in the last, 6-7 years, it's just been absolutely insane. But Great Notion has a place near and dear to my heart because that was like the first brand new brewery that I ever went to that like no one had before. And it was like, this place is going to freaking kill it. And then to see that they are, it's like, oh, that's so awesome.
You always say, man, I was one of the first ones in there. Right. I knew about that before anyone else.
I'm so hip and cool.
I've been to 3 breweries in Portland, and it's Breakside.
Oh, great brewery.
Incredible. Probably the best mac and cheese I've ever had.
Nice.
Cascade. If you like sours, Cascade is just like legendary. And then Stormbreaker.
Oh, yeah.
super good beer there too. So
Any of those?
I've had nothing but positive experiences in Portland for beer.
Any of that, living there and obviously a great hub of craft beer, any of that kind of influence what you're doing here at Kitsune?
Dude, yeah. So Fort George, up in Astoria, they do a event called Festival of Dark Arts, which is a stout festival.
Cool.
And we would go. I've been twice now, and like when you go there, there's like 60 different stouts to try. And so to be able to run that gamut to taste, all this stuff, like when we were making our imperial stouts and we were making our adjuncted stouts, it was like, okay, what do I remember from up there where people like what people were doing? Because there was such amazing dark beer up there. And I'm a huge fan of that. I believe it's stout season all year long. Like, I'm not going to sit in the pool and drink a 12% stout by any means. That sounds like a rough day, but maybe in the evening. But no, I like Fort George is doing some just amazing stuff. And they were little for years and they've just blown up. And they're just doing a lot of amazing work with different collaborations they do every year and different festivals. And they've really shown to me how like a brewery could branch out into not just serving beer, but what type of impact can we make on the community and the beer culture? And they're doing some really cool stuff with that.
That's cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and you've kind of designed this space really to be inclusive and with like handicapped access and other stuff. What kind of makes Kitsune unique for the Phoenix area?
So one of the things that I really pride myself on is the idea of inclusivity. It's like, hey, beer's for everybody. Everyone's welcome. And not saying that anyone has said otherwise, oh, beer's not for you. But the idea is like, what does that access look like? So one of the cool things that we did here was we created a bar that is wheelchair accessible. So someone in a wheelchair can come to our brewery and sit at the bar with everyone else, no different, And that was something that was important to me. It's like, I never wanted people to feel like they were an afterthought. And so when we built this space and we left it open, we have, wide walkways. We have, we try to do things that made it appear that, hey, no matter what walk of life you're part of, no matter where you stand or, don't stand, you're in a wheelchair. Like we thought of you and we wanted to make sure that you felt that way when you came in.
That's awesome. I love that.
And you kind of have a good story that well known, but you guys got Kickstarter helped you out. Is that the way to go, or is there like unintended like hidden things that you might not know about?
Oh my
for people wondering.
Yeah, so Kickstarter is a double-edged sword, blessing and curse type of situation. It's a really cool way for you to hopefully get your name out there. The thing about Kickstarter, though, is that you have to have your name out there a little bit before. I mean, a lot of the Kickstarters fail because there's no, market yet because they don't know who you are, what you're doing.
Right.
So the only main reason I believe my Kickstarter worked is because of what I did with Simple Machine. I was able to get my beer out there. People knew Kitsune before we launched the Kickstarter. And then I also, I'll be honest with you, I pretty much copied Megan Greenwood's Kickstarter like rewards and stuff. She's an amazing brewer owner, great person all around. And I always tell them like, you're the reason why you're the reason that I did well. And you're also the reason I have the headache of getting some of these rewards out, but I appreciate you on both ends. But no, that's the hidden part about it is you do all this work, you get them, you get all these pledges. Kickstarter obviously takes a rather larger chunk than you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then it's like fulfilling the rewards.
Yeah.
Like, thankfully, we had a lot of rewards that were brewery forward, like Mug Club. Like, there wasn't much I had to do with Mug Club. We had shirts. We were making shirts anyway, so sending them out wasn't a big deal. But like as time goes on, I don't care how prepared you are. Like stuff while they fall through the cracks, vendors will disappear on you, and so now you're playing this like I'm opening a business and I'm having to, hunt down a new vendor for something I thought was already done. And now I got to start almost all over. So my only suggestion for Kickstarter would be like, if you're doing rewards or when you're doing rewards, make it something that is so easy and seamless.
Yeah.
Something that you probably are already planning on doing. And that way, fulfilling it's a lot easier.
Nice.
Because when you start rolling out, it becomes cumbersome.
Is that what the founders list is on the side there?
So this is the founders wall on the side here. That was one of the Kickstarter rewards. It was like Mug Club and Founders Wall, or you could pay extra just to be on the Founders Wall. But like even that was like we had one company who was doing it, and then like when I thought it was going to be done, they're like, "Oh, we don't do those anymore." I'm like, "You said I knew it was going to take 2 months, but you could have told a brother like a month ago we weren't doing it." But thankfully, with some of the vendors that we've used with other things, like, "Oh, we do those," so we were able to pivot. But
totally. Yeah, very cool. Any plans for distribution in the future or anything like that?
Yeah, so right now we actually are distributing a little bit. We're in a more of a come to us, not come to you situation right now, where it's like, hey, if we have the beer, the allocation to get some stuff out of here, like come grab it if you're a bottle shop. And we actually have a few bottle shops that are more than happy to do that. We just don't have the capacity right now to be driving around all of Phoenix to be distributing, which fortunately and unfortunately, like we don't need it. Our sales have been really great. Like we can sell it in house, but I also understand, like, to the cats on the east side, how do we let them know we're there? Well, we need to go to Bottle Shop 48. We need to go to Sleepy Whale. We need to get our name in front of those guys.
Yeah.
And so that's the bad part about it, is we don't have the capacity to make those trips weekly.
Right.
But thankfully we're starting to get the distribution channels back open.
You're staying busy enough here, pouring your own beer here. It's never a bad problem, right?
Right. No, and that's the thing, right? So like I said earlier, the community has just been absolutely unreal. And the only way to keep growing and being better and get stuff out there is to grow that community. So thankfully we do have the people here to sell the beer, but we got to get all corners of that Phoenix market.
We touched on it on the very top, but North Phoenix is now this craft beer destination with, Lake Pleasant opening recently, and Fire and Fury and Simple Machine and Front Porch have been here for a while, and now Kitsune, and there's probably some I'm missing, but like, was that always kind of the goal to be in this area? Or once you saw that starting to explode, you're like, oh, I got to be a part of that?
No, so it always was the plan to be up here. These are my stomping grounds. Like, I grew up on the north side. My brewery, I feel like I'm a townie. My brewery is a mile away from where I went to high school. My parents are 10 minutes away from the house I grew up in, from the brewery.
Former teachers come in here a lot?
Yes.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah, and just regular teachers are like, thank God it's Friday. I'm like, that's right. So it was always my plan to do something on the north side anyway. And then once these places started popping up, it became very apparent that was the right decision, because we're close enough to like the further north guys, but far enough away that we're not, it's a mutual love, because if you come up on this side, the hope is you hit them all. Yep. Type of mentality.
For sure.
I mean, Scottsdale to, Lake Pleasant or Front Porch can be a bit of a hike, but Scottsdale to here is 5-10 minutes max, right? Like, it's really easy to get to.
I mean, we're a mile off the 51 in Bell. Like, the 51 is such a centralized freeway. Totally. I mean, now that we're talking infrastructure, like the freeway here in Phoenix is so dope, because it literally cuts through the center of everything. And so getting to us is not an issue for a lot of people.
It might be the easiest one to get to be honest, from just getting off of a freeway.
Yeah.
Boom, you're right there.
Well, now 100 Mile too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sue's doing some awesome stuff over there.
So
I mean, in this area,
you're part of like such a cool group of brand new, within the last, let's say 6 months, breweries. It's so cool to see even more. I remember 2 years ago, we're like, oh wow, the Phoenix brewing scene has like blown up so much, and it just keeps going, and it's awesome.
It really does.
Bring them on more.
Well, and that's the thing. I've heard some comments like, oh, oversaturation, and I don't think people realize like what other cities look like.
Yeah.
Like, we have 120, 130 breweries in Arizona. Like, that's how many they have in SoCal. Like,
and we're the 5th largest city in the country. So like from a population perspective, there's plenty of business for all of those breweries.
100%.
You go to San Diego and they have twice as many breweries, and they don't have as many people. So
right.
I actually talked to one of the guys, Pariah Brewing. They moved out of San Diego into Maryland because like San Diego was so, they said it was oversaturation in San Diego. They're like, we're doing way better in Maryland.
Well, and as a small brewery, it's so hard to stand out in San Diego because you're being overshadowed by Stone and Modern Times and Coronado and like all these breweries that are huge.
Right.
And that's where everybody's going. And so if you're a small brand new brewery in San Diego, to stand out, like That's a tough bill to pay.
100%. And what's cool about Arizona is that Arizona isn't known as a brewery destination state, but we are putting out some of the best beer in the country. Like
100%.
You know, Rittenhouse just won their gold medal for Fest beer. Like that's a German style lager. You can't hide anything. Like, don't tell me there aren't breweries out here doing just awesome, ridiculous stuff, because there really is. And the more that we keep talking about it and the more that we get these quality breweries opening, Phoenix, Arizona is going to be dope.
Are you planning on submitting to like GABF or, you know, shameless plug, Arizona Craft Beer Awards or anything like that? Like,
that is why we're here.
No,
Tyler.
100%. Yeah, because you guys guaranteed me a gold if I did this. So joking. Yeah, so you know, we've talked about it. It's, you know, you play one of those cards and it's probably more protecting yourself than anything. Oh, we don't need the awards. Like we think we make good beer. We don't need someone to tell us. But at the same time, it's like, I'm only saying that because I don't want to lose, you know, type of thing. So, you know, we have been making some beers that we're really proud of, like Shua Shua, our rice lager, is a beer we're really proud of. And I think it would be a good idea for us to be able to submit those things so that we can get true judge feedback. Like, sure, we have people who come in the brewery who love the beer and stuff like that, but what are those tasting notes that you think this is missing that's, you know, on an actual graded scale and not just someone's whim? And so, you know, I hope to. We got to kind of dial it in to figure out which ones that we really want to keep consistent and go forward with.
Yeah.
But I think in the future, that's definitely...
I mean, it's definitely something we are focused on doing, and I know the Guild is too, in making our awards, the Arizona Craft Beer Awards, that is making sure that whether you win or not, you're getting feedback that helps you do something, actionable feedback that's going to help you either improve your beer, or if you don't want to improve your beer, if you don't want to follow that feedback, you don't have to, but you're getting something from, you know, judges who range from, you know, very experienced BJCP, GABF judges all the way up to people who have never judged before and are trying it for the first time. So that's really what we're hoping we can kind of maintain into the future, is making sure you're getting more, you know, actionable tasting notes.
There's some judges that can tell that it might just. There's some judges that can tell that this was a clear packaging issue, you know, and that may not come through as when you're brewing, obviously, but oh man, this was packaged weird, and you know, it's all that detail, that fine detail that goes into it, right? Yeah, no, it's you know, we've had issues before, not issues in like it's rampant, but like one time when I was canning at Simple Machine. And it was like every sixth seal was like screwing up. And I get a call one day, I got a message on Untapped. It's like, oh, this was undercarbed. And I was like, there's no way that was undercarbed. I was like, hey, like, can I see did you take a picture of it? He's like, yeah. And you could see like the black, like a brown ring around the lid. And it was like, oh shit, like it was leaking. And so like when you get feedback like that, it makes you go back and, you know, look at your equipment and say, oh, this, you know, XYZ. Oh my gosh, like I could have done another 100,000 cans and not, you know, because you said something, I was able to go back and rectify it. So it's just that's time. I like that feedback. Yeah, sure. Totally. You've been home brewing for a long time before professionally brewing. What was the first beer you ever made, and what? This probably wasn't your best beer, but what was the best beer, or your first best beer you ever made? So the first beer I ever made was a raspberry wheat ale, and like I'll never forget. I remember bottling it in the kitchen.
Sucker for punishment.
Oh
man.
my gosh! Well, then it was like I drank it. I was like, oh. Yeah, I can't wait to share this with everybody. And like in hindsight, I'm like, that beer was trash. That was not good at all.
I really relate to this because I just started home brewing in November, and I made this dark ale, and I split it in half. I went way too hard on my first one. I split it in half. I fermented, you know, did a secondary fermentation with one with cinnamon and the other half with honey. And, you know, I cracked the first one. I'm like, oh, this is so good. Literally same thing. Yeah. And then I bring a bottle to a friend's house, and there's like three of us trying it. And a friend of mine takes a sip and he's like, dude, all I'm getting is green apple. Just like,
Ooh, no good.
all I'm getting is acetaldehyde. And I'm like, and I take a sip again. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. We threw it out. Like we couldn't finish drinking it because it was so, and you know, I'm like blinded on my first tasting.
100%.
And so it's like, I totally related to that story. It was like, yeah, dude, my first beer, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's like, ah.
And it makes you wonder, like I was homebrewing for a long time, like with rose-colored glasses, you know, like just family and friends over and over telling me, oh yeah, your beer is good. Like America's Got Talent, that bad singer, but my parents said I was good. Your parents lied.
Yeah.
Like, you know? And so it's like,
or they just didn't know.
right. And like, how many bad beers did I give to my friends and they just smile and nodded? Like it was crazy. I would say my first best beer would have to be about 7 years ago is when I wrote Forager, which is our flagship hazy IPA. The reason why now Forager has changed crazy amount since that day, but that was I have an older brother who is very honest with me to a fault. He was the first one who ever said my beer was trash. But when I gave him Forager, he took a sip of it and he goes, this is better than 85% of the stuff on the shelves right now. He's like, I would buy this. And I was like, oh, whoa. Like, usually
okay?
Like,
are you okay? Like,
it's usually quiet or disrespect. I was like, I wasn't ready for that. But no, like, and so I went back to that beer and I was like, okay, this is the one that I'm going to take to like different homebrew, you know, clubs and like, you know, okay, hey guys, can you really taste this for me and see, like, tear it apart type of stuff. Yeah. And as time goes on, you know, through working with Marshall and stuff, we really fine tuned it, needed to where it be. And even when we came here with the new system, we changed it all up. But that's the beer that told me, okay, maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
Do you have a can of it?
I have it on tap and I have it in growlers.
Do you want to drink it? Can we taste it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah? You want to taste it?
Yeah, I've had Forager. I think that was the first one that we had. Maybe was that your first release, like through Simple Machine after Black is Beautiful?
So we did Black is Beautiful. Then we did Point of Convergence, which was the moment of Marshall and I coming together as one.
Nice.
And then we came out Forager.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll take a quick break and run an ad. Then we'll come back with Tyler and a little sample of Forager.
All right. Sounds great.
This is the rice, and it is delightful. It's better than any rice I've ever had.
Oh, thank you.
And you had mentioned earlier kind of why it's a little earthier, it's a little more flavorful. Can you
so
talk about that?
Shua Shua, Japanese rice lager. Yeah.
Yep. So Shua is actually the term for carbonation bubbles in Japanese. So I thought that was a fun name for it because it's supposed to be really crispy beer. So
it's very crispy.
But yeah, so what's really cool about this beer is we use a Japanese long grain jasmine rice. And even just eating it, like if you were to do like a minute rice against a jasmine rice, like the flavorfulness is, you can't match it. Like there's an earthiness to it. There's a slight funk to it because of the germination of the rice. And so when we put it in this beer, you know, a lot of times if you see a rice lager, they're like crystal clear, maybe a little yellow tint to it. Ours is a little darker because of the rice we use. And the nose is funky, but so there's a theory in Japanese cooking where you can make something smell so bad, but when you taste it, it actually, like, the smell and the taste are so completely different. But the reason why is because they play together. Like, it could be so delicious but smell so bad. Not saying our beer smells so bad, but the idea is that you smell it, you drink it, you're like, that kind of funk turns into sweetness on the tongue, and it's crispy, and it's such a cool experience. And it's
really good.
So yeah, Shua Shua is a mainstay. We keep that on because we want people to experience that like all year round, because it's, I believe, you know, I've had tons of rice lagers and I really enjoy ours. And I think it's a really cool offering for people to be able to try something a little bit different.
Totally.
Yeah, you got to have different stuff, and you've done a nice job with that, with different, you know, brown ales, lagers. This is the ramen and OJ we were talking about earlier. Had it at Copper State. I really liked it's got kind of like a citrusy, but with a little bit of spice on the aroma, and then it goes down so smooth and just fresh and clean. It actually, I mean, you got to hurry up and open up that ramen shop because I want a bowl of ramen to go with this so bad.
Same. And so not to get you excited, but one of our aspects of the ramen shop that we're doing, and anybody who has been to like a real ramen shop and not just like having Maruchan at home or Top Ramen, Our goal is when we're going to have like 8 to 10 different types of flavoring oils you can put on top of your ramen that pair with the beers that we have on tap. So it's going to be like a really cool, cohesive experience that allows you to, you know, oh, I'm having ramen and OJ today. All right, so you're probably going to really want like a mild, spicy, and garlic, you know, chili oil, you know, instead. Or I'm having my stout today, so we have this really cool, you know, brown sugar and shoyu sauce oil that you can put on top that plays well with that. So it's going to be kind of a really cool experience.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
So I'm stoked about it.
That's super cool. And what I like about this beer is I get a lot of I mean, it's all citrus, but it's not like sweet. It's like really nicely I hate overusing the word, but it's really nicely balanced in that like it's got the OJ flavor and the citrus, but it's not like a glass of OJ. It's still a beer.
Yeah.
Which it's very, very tasty.
No, and that's what's so cool. Like, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, Arizona and breweries and, you know, the stuff people are coming out with. And, you know, just to pay homage to some of the cats in the game, like Hop Chowder out of Goldwater. I mean, that beer is just balanced and just slap. Spellbinder winning, freaking Drew winning gold medals again. You know, Spellbinder.
Drew, just leave some for the rest of us, Drew.
Yeah. Well, what's funny story about Drew, just real quick. We actually went to elementary school together.
No way.
Yeah, so we were in the same second grade, North Ranch Elementary School. Go Wranglers!
Love it.
And so
their beer program is phenomenal.
It is. No, and what's funny is Dustin, who owns Lake Pleasant, went to Horizon. Like,
no way.
And his wife and I went to high school together. I don't know what's in the water in the north side, but we're finally doing them. We're open breweries and the people need it.
I went to Horizon too, so maybe I'll start a brewery someday.
Right?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, there's so many cats out there doing such amazing things, and it's so cool that like we feel like we finally have dialed in that we can be part of that echelon up there who's making great Tombstone's IPA is insane. You know, Marshall out there is making Helical and all of this crazy hazies. It's, I mean, to finally feel like we can be part of that conversation and be part of that, you know, echelon of folks up there is really cool.
You named a lot of brewers and beers. Do you have a favorite like local beer other than whatever you make?
So I hate doing this.
It's hard to pick, right?
No, I know exactly which one it is, but I don't want to say. I'm going to say it, but he gives me crap about this all the time. He's like, oh, like he'll have one of my beers and he'll be like, oh, it's not this one. Yeah, it is. I'm like, screw you. Oregon Lots 2 double IPA from Tombstone is the most, to me, is the most stupid double IPA of all time, and stupid in a good way. Like, and so the GM of Tombstone lives up on this side, and he's John Meredith, great buddy of mine. Always comes by and we have beers, and he always gives me crap about not quite Oregon Lots yet. I'm like, oh. And then Rob Coate and Weedy, the brewers down there, I mean, talk about a wealth of information to be able to call those guys up and be like, hey, my fermentation stuck. Like, what do I got to do? He's like, well, you can either get screwed or these 3 things that might kick it off again. Like, but I mean, like I said earlier, the community's awesome. Everyone's been open, but Oregon Lots 2 from Tombstone is just, I
do love that beer too. When that first came out, man, so good. And
so good.
It's almost like they just do that one, and because they used to do like a triple and a single with that, but if you just do the double, I mean, we're just fine with that
all day long, right? To the point of when we opened, we only had 8 beers on tap when we opened. But I called down there. I'm like, can I get some Oregon Lots so I can just enjoy it myself up here as well?
I like that too, because I mean, you lived in Oregon. I grew up in Oregon. I grew up in Hillsboro, Oregon. You probably know where that is, right?
I always say Portland, but no. But it's like when you say I lived in Chicago.
Yeah.
And you're like, but did you really?
Or I lived in Phoenix, but you grew up in Mesa, or whatever. Right.
So I actually lived in Hillsboro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where was I going with that? There's a little bit of that kind of nostalgia for, it's kind of got that cool Oregon like trail logo on the thing, on the can, and that kind of takes you back a little bit. And like you have a little bit of pride of, man, I'm from the state where like these hops are making the beers that I love here in Arizona, and I always appreciate that.
No, and so when I was telling you a little bit earlier about my brother, he lived in Seattle, so we'd drive through Yakima Valley, and like, I've driven by the Yakima Valley hop farms, and it's so crazy that, you know, I buy Yakima Valley hops to make these beers, and to know that I've seen the trusses where the hops are growing up, and I've seen the trail of hundreds of pounds of hops on the ground as these trucks are transporting it, and you're just like, is this why my hops are so expensive? Because you just left 1,000-pound trail on the way there. But no, it's super neat, to your point, to be able to see where some of this stuff is actually grown and made.
Yeah.
And then to be able to use it now down here is really super neat.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is what I love about the Arizona beer scene is so many people are making like Arizona beers, and that they're like using local ingredients and like bringing in local flavors. And do you have any beers that you think you're doing that, or do you have plans to do something like that?
So here, like, the issue is, and it's no different than what we're doing here with, like, obviously a pint of my beer is going to be more than a pint of Coors, right? Like, that's just the fact of the matter. And not to diminish quality by any means, but like my malters that I use, like, they're a grander scale, so the price is a little bit low. There's some like what is it? Our Grain R&D out of Phoenix. They are making some great malts. Unfortunately, when we're just starting out, like, every penny counts. So my hope is to be able to splurge and do those things one day. I've met with them a couple times. Amazing folks up there. And it's just like, I gotta figure out, how, maybe it's even adding like 10% American Arizona grain. Is something that, in the interim to maybe possibly do. But I would love to be able to make several of my beers, some new beers that are just like straight out of Arizona.
Yeah.
It's something I've been thinking about. We have a lemon tree in our backyard, and it produces like a metric ton of lemons, and I can never, I love making lemonade, but like, I can't, this is too much. And I know a lot of people, have a grapefruit tree that produces way more grapefruits than they could eat. And like, people are putting them out in boxes on the street. Like, I've always wondered if it would, I don't know if any other breweries are doing it, but like putting out like a community thing of like, if you have extra citrus, just bring it to like our brewery and we'll make a beer with this.
Well, that's what Huss does with
do they?
Senfo. Yeah,
okay.
Their Senfo citrus IPA. They invite everyone in Central Phoenix to bring all their grapefruit and lemon and that sort of thing.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, if you want lemons, let me know, man, because my tree's about to fall over.
That's the one free ingredient I think you can get in Arizona, right?
Lemons. Make a Radler beer.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be tasty. I think the summer, man.
There are wild hops that grow out in like Greer and the White Mountains, and but I think the Arizona Wilderness guys are out there picking it before anyone else can get out there.
Actually, what's super cool
is
is
brews tips.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you, back in Portland? Jeez. The Simple Machine crew actually every year does a hop picking, like wild hops up north, and they do enough to do like a little 3-barrel batch of they pick them 24 hours later, they're in the boil. Like, it's really super neat. I'm not going to say where, because number one, I don't remember, and number two, I don't want people to steal the hops. So you're welcome, Marshall, for my lack of remembrance. But no, like, my hope one day is to be able to be big enough where we can call Yakima Valley and be like, we want to do a fresh hop beer.
Yeah.
Because those, buying them, it's not cheap. So we're all just trying to figure it out, which is neat.
Is there, do hops not grow in the Phoenix? Is it too hot? Like, I don't know much about what kind of environments hops grow well in or not.
My assumption is it's too hot because in Portland and in Washington, like, you can literally put like a hop rhizome in and just leave it and never touch it again, and you'll have hops in 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, and here, I just think it's probably just way too hot.
Probably would have to do like indoor, like sort of hydroponic type of thing, if
like
you
an
wanted
experimental
to do that.
type thing. Yeah.
And we won't be making hops if we're doing that.
No. All right. So final thing, we'll get you out of here on this, Tyler. So doing some research about Kitsune, it popped up a lot of other breweries that also kind of use the Kitsune.
Maybe we should start with telling us what Kitsune is.
What is that? It's like you use the three-tailed fox kind of deal, right?
So we actually are crossbreeding our interpretations. So there is the Kitsune yokai that, like, as it gets older it gets the tails. That's like the main folkloric Kitsune that a lot of people know.
It's like a spirit, right?
Yeah.
In Japanese folklore.
Yeah. So, but the Kitsune that, like, when I think about where we are and what we're doing here, is the Kitsune that guards the Inari shrines. So the Inari shrines is where the Japanese people go to pray for, like, agriculture, health, wealth, the community. And kind of as we talked a little bit, like, this, not only just being here now, being at my community, this is where I grew up.
Yeah.
And so the idea was to bring the place back to where I grew up and to create a place people can come into And the Kitsune is what guards this, is what's, protecting what we're trying to build here.
That's cool.
Is the thought. But like people see the logo, they're like, oh, Naruto. And I'm like, yes, I love that too, but no, but yeah. So that's where our thought process for the logo comes from.
Very good. Well, we have a little quiz. I'll tell you the name of the beer, the brewery, and you tell me what city or country it might be in.
Okay.
Because they're using Kitsune all around the world, if you didn't know this.
I do. Yes, I knew some of it, yeah.
How about this first one? Kitsune Dreamer IPA from Mars Community Brewing, where they talk about like beer on Mars.
I was going to say, it's still on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll give you a hint. It's here in the U.S.
I was going to say, it feels like American.
It's a major city. A lot of these, I've never heard of some of these breweries.
Dallas?
It's in Chicago.
Oh,
so Mars
dang.
Brewing.
Don't judge me, Chicago people.
So, all right. So another one that's a little bit international here, a little global. And just reading some of the description on this, apparently it's 3 Japanese women that opened a brewery in another country.
Heck yeah.
Called Japas Brewery. And they brew a Kitsune Belgian Tripel.
Dude.
Or triple.
Sounds
Do you say
delightful.
tripel or triple?
I've always said Tripel.
When I'm feeling fancy, I say Tripel.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
just before I answer this question, I do have to say this. So Marshall and I, for their 3-year anniversary, we brewed a Belgian Tripel. And so this was a true...
And those beers are out right now, right?
They are out right now, yeah. This is a true conversation we had. Are we calling it a Tripel or a triple? I'm like, what are the... And texting back and forth, I'm like, well, how do people normally say, oh, they say it both ways? I said, well, we are bougie, so we're going with Tripel.
Yeah.
I like that. Even the brewers themselves don't know how to say some
Here's
of the
my
words,
thing.
right?
If it was triple, it would be spelled PLE.
But they can come out that way though,
Right.
too.
But
Yeah.
if it's spelled PEL,
You're fancy.
Is it double or Dubel?
it's Dubel.
Dubel, right?
Yeah.
That's how I say it. Yeah.
If it was double, it'd be spelled DOUBLE.
I'm going against the grain. I'm going to say double.
Okay.
No, I would say
like if you were
Dubel
to make
too.
a Belgian double or a Belgian Dubel. Yeah, you're right. I think it's how fancy you want to sound, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to sound. We
Yeah,
I like
wanted
that.
to sound fancy. It was the anniversary, man.
Yeah.
we gotta be fancy.
Yeah.
Like, do you say champagne or champagne?
I think we
We say champagne.
Pagne all day.
So anyways, the
Sorry, go back to the question.
the Kitsune Belgian Tripel from Japas Brewery. What country is that from?
Well, Japas feels like Trappist, even though without a T.
It's Japas.
Japas.
Japas. Oh, dang. Italy.
No, it's Brazil.
Damn it. I mean, darn it.
Wild
Dude, I gotta
that
tell you real
they
quick.
opened up that in Brazil, but there you go.
Just to interrupt, this ramen and OJ has gotten, like, it was good on the first sip. It's just gotten better and better.
Oh, thank you.
And better. Like,
I'm telling you, I when I went to Year 10, got that at Copper State, I urged my friends to go there and like, here, take a sip of this. And they missed out because they were in line for another 10. And I'm like, you guys are missing out. You got to go try Tyler's beer.
And that's what's so, like I said, so cool about the Arizona beer industry. And I think people are finally starting to come on board and be a part of it. Is some of the new guys like myself, we were trained by the people you love.
right.
Not necessarily trained, but like we were helped by the people you
Totally.
love. So like my hope is as people start seeing, like my hope is that I get to help someone one day, right? But like my IPAs and my beers are very, I have my own recipes, I do my own things, but like when we start talking about, salts and yeast and what we're doing with these different aspects of the brewing world, it's not, certain things aren't thrown at the wall.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I talked to Drew, I talked to Marshall, I talked to
Right.
Rob and Weedy to try to figure out, okay, this is what I'm trying to go for. Can you help me get to where I'm at? So some of these new breweries, Lake Pleasant's a great example, out of the gate making beer that slaps. That's so good.
Yeah.
Ryan Stanlin, huge influence on me and stuff we've done up at Dark Sky. Like,
Dude, Dark Sky, man.
just making crazy beers.
People, when they talk about Arizona beer, everyone talks about Run House. Everyone talks about, Wilderness. Everyone talks about, like, kind of your greatest hits. But, like, I feel like so often.
Okay.
Did we lose
I
something?
think I unplugged your microphone. You on?
Mine? When?
Oh,
Nope. You're good. I just tapped it.
Was that recently? Or have I been quiet?
No,
this
it
whole
was
time?
just recent.
no, this just happened.
people talk about Arizona beer and they talk about like Wren House and all these like Wilderness and all these amazing breweries.
Hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Yeah.
I was going to
just wants to.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
there-
back.
It wants to the microphone's canceling me.
He's back.
But Dark Sky, man, like I've spent so much time at that tap room, and everything I've had of theirs is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like,
And so thank
Big
you
fan.
for saying what you said, because, people see these new breweries, and I'll be honest with you, there was a time like when I was living in Oregon and I was seeing new breweries, I was like, oh man, like I hope they get it. Like I hope there's a few things and you can tell, home brewer to, professional. There's a leap there, and I will never forget. This is my humbling story. I gave forwarded a recipe to Marshall, and he looked at it and he's like, do you want to make money on this beer? I'm like, yeah. He's like, then this isn't it, because as a home brewer, you have, 6 or 7 different malts on your grain bill because it's $8. But to be able to go in there and be like, hey man, your recipe is probably not what it needs to be, and then to go on to be able to redo it and fulfill it in your first professional marketplace, it's different than coming out of nowhere. And so I urge people to try the new spots because they're doing some great stuff.
and some breweries do take a minute to kind of ease into their space, and I don't. This is why I always try breweries a second or a third time. Like,
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, you guys are killing it right out of the gate. I remember last year at the Copper State Beer Festival, it was at Astra's first festival, and I'd never seen them, and I went and I was like blown away by everything they were doing.
For sure.
And like sometimes it's when you go to a beer festival, sometimes it's the tent that doesn't have a line that's going to have better beer than the tent that has the biggest line.
Well, like our tent was white. We didn't have a tablecloth. Like, I get it. Like, don't get it twisted.
You were barely more dressed up than the Steel Cactus guys. I think they just had like a piece of wood in front.
Yeah. Well, I just talked to that guy, and he said he had built his jockey box like the day before.
Yep.
Like just like patched it together.
But those were like 2 of the best tents to get beer at that festival.
And funny story, Angelo, the owner of Steel Cactus, actually called me like a week before, being like, hey, you doing Copper State? I'm like, yeah, I think so. He's like, we're not really ready, like as far as like tents and notes. I go, dude, me neither. Like, let's just freaking go out there and do what we got to do. But Steel Cactus and Angelo, those guys, like I said, brand new cats out there.
Yeah.
Angelo's a solid the earth dude, making some great stuff. Make sure you check him out too.
And Trevor's super fun too. I was in there the other day, and Trevor's the other owner. And
oh yes,
he's a super nice guy, and we just hit it off right away. And they have like a bunch of home brewing equipment in their like brewery space that they're like gonna get rid of. And I'm like, is that a little like 10-gallon fermenter, conical fermenter that you're gonna try to sell? And I'm like, set it aside for me, please. Yeah.
Well,
cool guys.
Back to your question.
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
apologize. We just took the tangent. I apologize.
We're vibing. It's cool.
So yeah, no, I think we hit it off. Like Johan hit it off there. We hit it off here with Tyler, and we appreciate your time. Really great brewery here at 32nd Street in Bell, Kitsune Brewing. You guys are open most days during the week, not on Mondays though, but
we're closed Mondays,
3 o'clock most days, 2 on Friday, noon on weekends. Get down here, check it out. Make North Phoenix your craft brewery destination at least once in a while, and not just stick to your Phoenix or your downtowns or your Gilberts or your East Valleys. Get up here to North Phoenix, check out the whole scene up here. Tyler, thank you so much. Thanks for having us in. Thanks for your time.
This is awesome.
I appreciate you guys, and thanks for coming out. Cheers.